President Donald Trump just officially ended the penny.
The Treasury says the U.S. Mint has made its final order of penny blanks and will stop making pennies when those run out.
A few hours ago, Jerome Powell once again defied orders and left rates unchanged during one of the craziest markets that I've ever seen.
More specifically, talking about inflation, the economy slowing, and interest rates potentially falling.
Time is the most valuable asset, and I save it for you. My name's Jason. I'm your host. Welcome to the week in YouTube Finance.
What's up, guys? It's Graham here. And we're Look, I'm going to get straight to the point. Despite Trump's push to lower interest rates, as of a few hours ago, Jerome Powell once again defied orders and left rates unchanged during one of the craziest markets that I've ever seen. For instance, as a result of higher interest rates, the bond market has completely collapsed to a point that we haven't seen since the 1970s. The stock market is back near its all-time high, despite the ongoing conflict and escalation throughout the Middle East, as the United States continues to print endless amounts of new money. And the underlying problem has gotten so severe and unsustainable that Ray Dalio is sounding the alarm on the US economy. That's why it's absolutely crucial that we talk about exactly what Jerome Powell just said about lowering interest rates, why the bond market collapse could happen sooner than you think if it's too late to buy into stocks now that prices have almost completely recovered, and finally, what this means for you watching, especially if you want to come out ahead profitable. Although before we start, I'll make you a deal. If you hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that already, I will do my best to read and reply to as many of your comments as I can. Yes, I understand it gets annoying when I ask for it, but it does help out the entire channel tremendously. And if you don't believe me, just leave a comment and see what happens. So thanks so much, and also big thank you to Kickoff for sponsoring this video, but more on that later. Alright, so in terms of why the Federal Reserve decided not to lower interest rates, it all comes down to three letters. It sends chills down every investor's spine. CPI, or the Consumer Price Index. Essentially, this tracks the rate at which products and services increase or decrease in price over the last month and year. And as of recently, it was found that prices rose just 0.1% month over month, putting the annual inflation rate at just 2.4%, below expectations. In this case, most of the decrease came from lower energy prices, which fell 1% over the month, and most of the increase came from housing, which is still up 3.9% from a year ago, the lowest increase since 2021. Good news, right? Like in my case, I have about 30% of my money in real estate, 35% in stocks, spread 80-20 between the USA and international, 10% in a Bitcoin ETF, 20% in treasuries earning 4.5%, and the rest in alternative investments that aren't correlated whatsoever with the rest of the market. Yes, there is opportunity cost in keeping money in treasuries, but I also, at this point, just value peace of mind rather than maximizing every dollar. Thanks so much, and until next time.
President Donald Trump's crypto firm, World Liberty Financial, has deepened ties with a controversial billionaire. The president's stablecoin, called USD1, has begun minting on Chinese billionaire Justin Sun's blockchain, which hosted the largest share of illicit crypto activity last year, according to a crypto intelligence firm. Sun is facing civil charges in the United States of fraud and market manipulation. World Liberty Financial launched USD1 in April, which was pegged to the US dollar and backed by treasuries and cash equivalents. On June 11th, Sun announced that his Tron blockchain had begun minting USD1, making the stablecoin native to his network. This means that the president's company stands to profit as more USD1 is minted. Sun, who has now invested a total of $75 million in World Liberty Financial, has become an advisor to the company. In May, he toured the White House and dined with Trump at his D.C. area golf club for being one of the top holders of the president's meme coin, a separate crypto venture, according to social media post. In March 2023, the Securities and Exchange Commission filed civil charges against Sun and his company, alleging market manipulation and selling unregistered securities. Sun has denied the charges, and the judge paused the case at the request of both parties this February to allow time to discuss a possible settlement. As president, Trump has pledged to make the United States the, quote, crypto capital of the world, aligning with his expanding investments in digital assets. For more on the story, check out the article linked in the description.
The Federal Reserve Bank just announced that they're planning on changing course before the end of 2025 because they just finished their June meeting where they said two very important things. Number one, they said that they do not want to cut interest rates right now. And then they said, number two, that they're planning on cutting interest rates a couple of times before the end of the year. And that change of tone got some investors on Wall Street very excited, but others don't believe what the Fed says. For example, an economist from JP Morgan Chase Bank said this in response, quote, "We continue to look for only one interest rate cut this year, and they're anticipating it at the end of the December meeting," essentially saying, yeah, we'll believe the Fed when we actually see interest rates get cut. But if we go beyond interest rates, Jerome Powell, who is a chairman at the Federal Reserve Bank, also gave us some interesting insight into what's happening in our economy today, more specifically talking about inflation, the economy slowing, and interest rates potentially falling. And I want to talk about those things in this video. So let's start by talking about inflation. We saw the same thing happen in 2022 when we saw the stock market fall by 20%. Talked about how I was buying, and many people missed that opportunity because they were expecting markets to fall by way more than what happened. Personal finance is personal. That's why you shouldn't blindly trust a random guy on YouTube. Do what's right for you, but that requires you to invest in your own financial research and your own investor research as well. And with that, I'll see you on YouTube tomorrow.
President Donald Trump just officially ended the penny.
The Treasury says the U.S. Mint has made its final order of penny blanks and will stop making pennies when those run out.
And that is the first time in almost 170 years that America has gotten rid of one of its own coins from circulation. And while this seems kind of insignificant at first because it's just a penny, not everyone's using it, so who cares? But here's why this matters way more than you might think. This could be the beginning of a movement to modernize our economy, save millions in taxpayer dollars, and even condition us toward a fully digital, cashless society. And that's because each year, taxpayers have been losing $85 million just to make the pennies. Even though statistics show, on average, every single year, we throw away $68 million worth of coins.
President Trump wants to make the penny extinct.
Pennies are just not cost effective to make because in order to make just one penny, it costs almost 4 pennies. And the penny is something the government has tried to get rid of as early as 1989, 2001, again in 2006, and again in 2017.
Anytime we're spending more money on something that people don't actually use, that's an example of something we should probably change.
But this time, they're actually doing it because last month, the Treasury Department placed its last order of blanks of flat metal discs to make those pennies. The question is, what exactly does this mean for our money? And will stores start rounding up their prices to the nearest dollar and we're gonna pay more for everything? Are we gonna see a new era of digital money, and are the old pennies that we have gonna become worthless, or are they about to skyrocket in value and become collectibles? In this video, I'm gonna explain the history of the penny and show you what's about to change, why this matters way more than you might think, and what it means about the future of the system of money itself. So with that said, let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andre Jick. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the end of the penny. Now, even though our pennies are not gonna lose their face value overnight, they're also probably not gonna become super valuable collectibles either, or at least not right away, because historically only a handful of pennies, like the famous 1943 copper penny, ever reached truly collectible grail status. Once cash is gone, there's gonna be no going back. Maybe our kids or our grandkids will go to a museum in the future sometime, and they're gonna see dollar bills hidden behind a glass wall and study how we used to use physical money. That's probably gonna happen sometime in the future. But as always, I'd love to get your thoughts. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. I'd love to see you back here next week. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Do me a favor and hit that YouTube tip jar. Hit that like button, ka-bing, like that. Thank you so much. And I would love it if you're subscribed. So help me out. Talk to you soon.